I will say a few Swedish expressions, but I think that you have the same in English or similar ones. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Such a father, such a son. And then there is the Bible promising that God will curse the children for the parents' sins to the third and fourth generation. And we also have the fairy tales about the evil, entitled, selfish stepmother favorizing her own child, the golden child, and the stepdaughter, the Cinderella, being treated poorly, being scapegoated and abused. All of this is talking about the fact that toxicity repeats itself down in the generations if no one interrupts the pattern. If I look back into my own family history, I can see this trace of toxicity going back. Of course, these were people I didn't know that well intimately, so I can't really say how deep the toxicity were, but I can see the traces there. And if you look back into your family history, I'm sure that you can see similar patterns, at least like up to the grandparent level. Even though some of the patterns might be masked behind a healthy person covering for the toxic person. So if you're not that close, it may be hard to see. But the golden child and the scapegoat child is something that repeats in the stories, and it's something that happens in the narcissistic family system. The toxic parent picks a favorite, a child that they identify themselves with, that they favorize, that get the special treatment, the fancy cake for their birthday, and they get to do more things with a toxic person. They get more gifts, and if you get into a conflict, if you're not the favorite child, if you get into conflict with the favorite child, then the toxic parent will take the favorite's side, no matter the facts, and the opposite. So in order for the favorite child to be favorized, they have to adjust to the toxic parent, and they often learn the toxic, like the behaviors and the patterns from that parent. So it's common that his favorite child grows up to themselves be toxic. But if you were the scapegoat child or the not favorite child, I bet that you worked really hard to win that favoritism. I bet you worked really hard to gain the approval and the attention and affection and the love of your parent. For me, it was one of my main goals as a child, and something that I never seemed to succeed with. But there were glimpses of spending some time with my mother and being favorized, but it was very short-lived. And but those glimpses felt really, really good. It was almost intoxicating to finally be chosen and to finally feel seen and loved. This week on my channel, I have spoken about how sadism or sadistic tendencies is often a motivator in narcissistic persons. And it doesn't have to be physical abuse. It can take many other forms, but they do enjoy often watching other people be uncomfortable or struggling or failing or being in pain. especially if they were the engineer behind that situation. It makes them feel powerful. And if you were subjected to that during your upbringing, and you were in different ways tormented and shamed and criticized and abused, then as you grow up, when you meet a partner and they start to show a few of these tendencies, it doesn't feel strange or unnatural or wrong to you, because this is something that you have been used to since you were a little child. And on Wednesday, I spoke about how many of us felt awkward from a young age because we were left to try to navigate the world ourselves, not having an adult guide, but more than that, we had an adult who tried to sabotage the security that we built up when we started to feel confident or that we had a grip on things. Then they didn't like that, so they brought us down, and because the goal wasn't to build us up, it was to keep us under, like, in check, in their control, and they wanted us to be tense and looking to them for guidance. And this is also one of the reasons why a child who grows up with a toxic parent have a higher risk of ending up in a toxic relationship as an adult. Well, one, because we're insecure. We don't know really what is normal behavior and how others should treat us, and we don't know how we should act. So we are more easily targeted by bullies or toxic people because the way that they do it, it's always so covert. They blame us for being the reason why they are treating us badly, and pointing at our flaws, like real small flaws or imagined ones, and that's their excuse for treating us poorly. So if we already have this mindset that we are flawed and we need to keep people happy, and when something bad happens, it's our own fault, then we are easily targeted. But more than that, when you grow up in such an insecure environment, when you come across a partner or a potential partner who is toxic, then there is a risk of you actually ending up with a more disturbed and toxic person, because some of them, and I think that this is especially true for the women meeting a male partner who is a bit antisocial or psychopathic, when they have this high control, coercive control tendencies, then it can feel really comforting to have someone tell you how you should act or what you should do in order to be okay. And for me, that was something that I felt really good about in the beginning. Like it was very clear, and he was a bit stern, but it felt comfortable. But then there is also like what happens in the beginning of the relationship, because all of these things happens a bit further along. But in the beginning, something happens that you are not used to from your childhood, and that is being chosen. When the toxic person shows you this intense interest and love bombs you, which is one of the manipulative tactics that a toxic person uses to bind you to them, then this is very similar to how the toxic narcissistic parent treats their favorite child. And you may probably recognize this, and get the feeling that finally I'm being chosen, I'm being the special one. And rather than this feeling eerie, that they are like almost a bit obsessed with you, it feels comforting and familiar, and like you're finally being seen. And this can almost cause like instant, it's the lightning flash of love. So there are so many things that increase the risk of ending up in one of these relationships. And about the being chosen theme, there are a lot of fairy tales and stories about this fantasy of being chosen and him being the one, and it working out in the end. Like the Beauty and the Beast, or a more modern version is the 50 Shades of Grey, where this poor Mr. Grey, who has been traumatized in his childhood, is choosing this girl. I think her name is Anna, and he's acting like there are a lot of red flags there. Like, not to mention that he has all these sadomasochistic relationships, but he is like, he has all these rules, and he is super jealous. But in the story, all this gets turned to a happy ending. So that is like the toxic fairy tale. When you are the author of something, you are able to change the ending. But in reality, from the thousands and millions of stories of all the survivors out there, there is no such happy ending. There might be, if you manage to stay in a long-term relationship, there might be like coming to sort of a period where you coexist, and where perhaps the toxicity is a bit blunted by age, but in most cases it doesn't disappear. I have not seen a case where it disappears. I have seen long-term partners of these people trying to hold it together and trying to make it work, but getting dumped in the end, even though they have done everything they can. And these toxic people often self-destruct. So I think that's why the Bible calls it a curse. It's not, it's a way of living that actually like curses or brings bad fortune upon the person who is using it, even because it's all about short-term gains. It's about not growing, but pretending to grow, and not building, but taking. And that works only as long as you have some bait to throw out to lure people in, but because they're not developing, and because people are fleeing from them as they age. I would love it if you share it in the comments, what you have seen, the patterns, and if you agree with what I'm saying, or if you have seen something different. But the toxic people that I've seen, both like in my surroundings, in my personal life, and in my work, they get left. Like people are distancing themselves and leaving after a lifetime of abuse. Then there aren't many people left. And I mean, even if you're a healthy person, if you know someone for decades, then you know them really well. And it's hard to build new connections when you are a bit older if you don't have if you don't have any own interests, or if you haven't built like a deep character, or if it's all a show and if you are very shallow, these people are almost a bit like grown adolescents when it comes to their mindset, even though they might copy things. Like they may sound deep, or they may copy things, or they may mirror you, but that doesn't work to build these long-term relationships when you get a bit older. The healthy persons, like the people who have a surplus to share, they, in the end, they see through them, even though they might get away with it for years and decades. And in the end, they don't, and they become very bitter and miserable. But the topic for this video was the being chosen theme, and the learning to accept abuse theme as a part of love, and already being trauma bonded from a young age, and already having these patterns of interacting in your mind and feeling comfortable in that type of relationship. It increases your risk of ending up with a toxic partner. So if that did happen to you, there were a lot of explanations for it. And it certainly did happen to me. But in a way, I am grateful that it did, because without having gone through an intimate toxic relationship, I'm not sure if I would have ever woken up to see the toxicity that was surrounding me from a young age. I'm not sure if I would have been able to take a step back from my own family and see it, and distance myself, and choose to not let that toxicity influence my children, and choose to be a cycle breaker. So I'm very happy and proud that I have managed to become a cycle breaker. That's one of the things that I am proud of. Even though it was hard and a bit chaotic, but I am very hopeful that I will build something new and grow something new without that destructive influence. And now I see it, so I won't let it come near me. And I will raise some children who are not used to living in the shadow, and who are used to getting listened to and respected, and guided in life without someone trying to sabotage that. And when we're talking about generational patterns, God also says that He will bless the children to the third and fourth generation if the parent are righteous. So I'm taking a hold of that promise, and I do believe that it's very possible to be the start of a healthy generation once you see the patterns, and once you choose healthy and right and truth above clinging to toxicity and refusing to see. I'm Emma, holding up a light over the bridge. Thank you for listening to this, and see you in the next video.